Divorce hits men differently. Not always loud, not always obvious. Sometimes it's quiet. You're still going to work, still showing up, still answering messages, but inside, something has changed. You feel disconnected, flat, maybe even a little lost. And if that's where you are right now, you're not alone. To you about how men can heal after divorce. Not with quick fixes, not with cliches, but with practical steps that actually help, based on my 20 years counselling experience. Let's be honest, divorce isn't just the end of a relationship. For many men, it feels like the loss of an entire future. The future you thought you were building, the routines you had, the family life you imagined, the identity you carried, and that's why divorce can hit so hard. Because often you're not only grieving a relationship, you're grieving the life you thought you were going to have. A lot of men don't realize that. They tell themselves they should just move on. Get over it. Stay busy. Keep going. But grief doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. One of the things I see often is that men go into what I call function mode. They throw themselves into work. They stay busy. They keep moving. They focus on practical problems, lawyers, finances, housing, parenting arrangements. And while those things are important, they can also become a way of avoiding what's happening emotionally inside. Because underneath all that activity, there's often a deep sadness, anger, fear, loneliness, disappointment, and sometimes shame. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because many men quietly feel like they've failed. Failed as a husband, failed as a partner, failed as a father, even when the reality is far more complicated than that. Another trap men fall into after divorce is isolation. They stop talking, they withdraw, they tell themselves they don't want to burden anyone, or they convince themselves that, nobody would understand anyway. So they carry it all alone, and carrying emotional pain alone is exhausting. You can be surrounded by people and still feel incredibly lonely. Many men have mates, but very few have conversations about what they're actually going through. Not surface conversations, real conversations. The kind where you can say, this is harder than I thought, or I'm struggling, or I don't know what comes next. These conversations matter more than most men realize. So, what actually helps? Where does healing begin? Let me share with you 4 things that might help you or a mate. The first step is honesty. Not pretending you're okay when you're not. Not telling yourself you're fine when you know you're hurting. Real healing starts when you're willing to acknowledge what's actually happening. Maybe you're grieving. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Whatever it is, name it. Because you can't work through something you refuse to recognize. The second step is rebuilding structure. This might sound simple, but it's incredibly important. After divorce, life can feel chaotic. So focus on the basics: sleep, exercise, good food, time outside, routine. These things won't solve everything, but they can create stability when life feels unstable, and stability creates momentum. Third step is connection. Talk to someone, a trusted mate, a family member, a mentor, a psychologist, someone. Most men don't need somebody to solve their problems. They need a safe place to say what's really going on. And often, the moment you start talking about it, things become clearer. The burden becomes lighter. The path forward becomes easier to see. The fourth step is rebuilding your identity. Because after divorce, many men ask themselves, who am I? That's a normal question, but don't rush to answer it. Give yourself permission to rebuild, to rediscover what matters, to reconnect with your values, to create a vision for the next chapter of your life. Not the life you've lost, the life you're creating, because there will be another chapter, even if it's difficult to see right now. Here's something important to remember. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending it never happened. It doesn't mean there won't still be difficult days ahead. Healing means the experience no longer controls your life. The pain becomes something you've carried through, not something you're trapped inside. You begin to move forward, not because the past didn't matter, but because it no longer defines you. If you're going through a divorce or separation right now, I want you to hear this. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are not alone. What you're experiencing is one of life's biggest transitions. Transitions are painful. They're uncontrollable. They're uncertain. But they're also where growth happens. Take it one step at a time. Be patient with yourself. Reach out for support. And remember, some of the strongest men I have ever met are men who were willing to ask for help when they needed it. Thanks for watching.